You're listening to Between Pages and Friends, a book club hosted by Con and Lauren, two besties who read a lot of books, and Jon and Kyle, our supportive gamer husbands who have agreed to read with us.
Yes, welcome to episode 1 of our Throne of Glass book club. If you haven't listened to our intro episode, go do that and then come back. We'll still be here.
In this episode, we are discussing Throne of Glass, aka Book 1 in the Throne of Glass series, chapters 1 through 16. There will be no spoilers for future chapters or books, so if you've only read the first 16 chapters of Book 1, this is a safe space to chat about it with us.
Since this is a fantasy series and the character names have no rules, we'll be starting with a quick pronunciation guide based on the audiobook pronunciations of characters and places. Then Jon will give us a chapter recap. Lauren and I will discuss our initial reactions and thoughts. Connor will ask some spoiler-free reflection questions, and then we'll talk any theories and favorite moments from this section before wrapping up each episode.
Yeah, and before we get started, make sure that you are following us on Instagram and TikTok for all of the bookish content, our podcast updates, and more. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure you're subscribed to our channel so you never miss out on an episode. And if you want bonus content, early access to episodes, an incredible community of book lovers to chat with, live events, merch discounts, and more, you should check out our Patreon. We love our Patreon members, and we have so much fun in getting to know you all. While you're checking out all of our pages, make sure you stop by betweenpagesandfriends.com to see some of our latest merch. Do you guys want to share maybe one of your favorite merch?
Yes, I do.
From our most recent drop or whatever we've got?
I'll go first.
What do you got?
My favorite piece of merch right now, someone in our Patreon actually just sent a picture of it because she got hers in the mail today. We have a mug that says, "Sarah, you magnificent wizard," and it's on the ACOTAR book stack. It's like a little drawing of the book stack with the book colors from the A Court of Thorns and Roses series. That's my favorite right now. It's very cute.
Mine is the Between Pages and Friends book club tee. I got it in the light blue, and that's just, yeah, that's solid. It's looking good.
Mine is this Between Pages and Friends hat.
Yes.
I wear it all the time now, even at home. When I'm at my computer as well, I use it as a little padding for my headrest there. And I mean, let's not lie, it makes me look pretty great. So
I'll
Yes,
say.
it does. My most recent favorite merch is our Between Pages and Friends book club sticker that Con designed. Well, first of all, Con designed everything, and they're amazing. So good job, Con.
Thank you.
But this is my favorite one. It's the one that's on Jon's t-shirt that he was talking about too. But I love these holographic stickers. They're so cute.
Yeah, they look great.
Okay, let's jump into Throne of Glass.
Yeah, so we're going to start with a quick pronunciation guide because this is, like Kyle said, this is a fantasy series. The character names, the location names have absolutely zero rules. So we are going based off of the audiobook pronunciations read by Elizabeth Evans. I have listened to the audiobook, so I will do my best to do these pronunciations justice. Please do not come for us if we don't pronounce them perfectly. So in this stretch of chapters, this is chapters 1 through 16 of the Throne of Glass book. We've met a lot of characters. We've heard about even more geographical locations. So here's a quick rundown of how these names are pronounced. We start in the salt mines of Endovir and move into the city of Rifthold in Otterlin. Other locations that are mentioned in passing are Aurelia, Eelway, Oakwald Forest, Terrason, Wendlin, Calaculla, Melisande, Peranth, and Aniel. That's a lot. If you need me to repeat any, let me know.
Mm-hmm.
Our leading lady is Selena Sardathian, also known as Lillian Gordana, the captain of the Royal Guard. This is the one we've received the most questions about. His name is pronounced Kale Westfall, also known as Kale, also known apparently as Kyle.
Yeah.
It's not Kyle. Like, he's not been saying it like Kyle. He's been saying like Kyle, like you're from Texas.
Kyle.
Kyle Westfall.
Kyle, gunslinger,
Kyle.
lawman.
My name's Kyle Westfall.
Captain of the
Outlaw.
Royal Guard.
I mean, if you have some guy named like the Eye Eater or whatever it is, you could have someone gunslinger. Like, why not throw that in there? Kyle.
I've been saying Kale is sort of pronounced like chaos with an L. So if that helps. They don't always enunciate it that
Gotcha.
clearly. Sometimes it does sound more like one syllable, but there's a Kale Westfall. Then we get into the Crown Prince of Otterlin, Dorian Havilyard. And then we have Dorian Havilyard's brother is pronounced Holland. There is Duke Parrington. In my notes, I just put gross. He doesn't have another title or description. Being pursued by Duke Parrington is Caltaine Rompier. Then we have Arabin Hamel, who's mentioned as the assassin who trained Selena. Theodos Brillo is the weapons master that's leading the trials. And then Nehemia Itger is the Princess of Eelway. I think that covers most of the main characters. So now that we know how to pronounce everybody's names, let's get into the chapter recaps written by our favorite Jon. Take it away.
All right, the chapter recap for 1 through 16. So we are introduced to our femme fatale, Selena Sardothian, Adarlan's most lethal and renowned assassin. She's been a slave in the salt mines in Endovir and is visited by Cale Westfall, captain of the Royal Guard, and Dorian Havillard, the crown prince of Adarlan. So they are there to offer her a bargain of competing to be the king's champion and her subsequent services if and when she wins in exchange for her freedom. Obviously, she takes that deal. Go off, queen. She'll be fighting under an alias, as we mentioned before. What's the name again? Lillian?
Lillian Gardena.
She's still laughing at your go off queen.
Listen, go off, queen, if you want to do it. So she's fighting under the alias because, I mean, let's face it, the embarrassment of Adarlan's assassin, like being a teenage girl, would not be a good look for a king.
Men.
We learned some history about Selena being from Terrasen and found washed ashore by Erebin, the king of assassins. We also learned that the land of Aurelia was once filled with magic and magical creatures, but the king outlawed magic and any trace about 10 years ago. So they take her back to the castle, and Selena gets put up in a 5-star penthouse with access to some serious thread drip and a custom library. We get some info about the queen and Dorian's little brat brother who's been like shipped off to boarding school, basically. We also meet a handful of characters. We mentioned the creepy Duke Parrington and the thirsty Coltaine Rampier. Then we have a few of Selena's competitors, most notably Kane, which is Duke Parrington's champion. Before their first trial, we find out that one of the competitors was brutally murdered in the castle in ribbons. But really, we don't get too much more info about that. We also meet Nehemia, Princess of Eelway. Selena speaks to her in Nehemia's native tongue, so they become really fast friends. We learn that Cale and Dorian grew up together in the castle. Cale is from Aniel, and he abdicated his title of lord to come back to Rifthold to like train under the previous captain of the guard. And then kind of the end of these chapters is the first trial, which is an archery test. And this whole time, Cale's plan for Selena was for her to be mid, basically, literally the middle. Like, don't show off, but don't
go off, queen.
Don't go off, queen. They don't want anybody to suspect or target her. But of course, she goes and puts the 5th arrow right dead center bullseye in the contest, which not even Kane did. So
When you're a queen, you're a queen.
when you a queen, you a queen. You know what I'm saying? Okay, so and here we are.
And here we are.
Here we
Amazing.
John, you just mentioned that the guy was in ribbons or whatever. And Con, you just went on this whole long list of names. Can we talk for a second about how this guy's name is Bill? I just started cracking up. Like, I don't know how to pronounce anyone's names. I'm so confused at where we're at as far as a country, but it's just Bill.
And of course, the guy with the easiest name to pronounce is the one who gets killed off immediately.
That should have
Probably
been,
why.
Yeah, I was going to say, that should have been my first warning that he was going to go.
Poor William.
Yeah, well, he was eating eyeballs, so.
You eat one eyeball, and all of a sudden, everyone's calling you Bill the Eye Eater.
Anyways, overall though, like I had no idea what I was going into with this book. Being like a bookish girly, this book has been so intimidating. I just feel like it's everywhere, first of all, and I'm sure it's going to be amazing. And apparently it's going to wreck me. I have no idea what's happening. And so I've just been like intimidated by it. Connor let me borrow the books at least 6 months ago now, and they've just been sitting there collecting dust. I had to literally wipe dust off of them when I pulled them up. My bad. And I also felt like a lot of people are like, you haven't read it yet? Because I've already read Of Court of Thorn and Roses, and I've already read Crescent City. So going into it, I had no idea. I've just avoided it. I've tried to avoid all things about it for spoilers and whatever else. So Kyle and I are big Dungeons and Dragons players. And so all I knew about it was that this book was like high fantasy. And so in my brain, there was some party of people going on an adventure together, like Dungeons and Dragons style. That's what I thought was going to happen today. It's not what it's like. I do really love the, I don't know, almost Hunger Games feel of things with like a competition and I'm assuming like fight to the death. Like I don't imagine anyone's actually walking out of here. I know her friend Knox, is that his name?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
he was saying that he was promised, even if he doesn't win, he has his freedom. But I thought until that moment, it's one person making it out of here and they're the champion person. So I just don't imagine anyone actually walking out. So I really liked that aspect of it, though. I do imagine that she wins, but because like there's like a bajillion books in this series, but it's also Sarah J. Maas. So I feel like I can't trust anything. And every prediction that I have is probably really wrong. So that's what I got. Where are you at, Kyle?
Well, I came into the book fresh to Sarah J. Maas, so I have no expectations to be subverted in that sense.
Yes.
I do also think she's going to win. I feel like she's going to win. She's going to have some other side story as she's going through the competition about maybe magic things, which, like, when I first came into the book, I like learning about the world and the lore. Spent a few minutes looking at the map, that sort of thing. Whenever they said like, oh yeah, magic was outlawed and then it just disappeared, I was a little disappointed because I was like, I swear if that's her way of saying this is a non-magical fantasy, then I'm like a little tuned out already. But then the magic started showing up. I was like, okay, good. And with the scene with like her falling asleep in the forest and the little infant-sized footprints leaving flowers, so I'm sure magic will come back, and I do think it's going to play a part in the competitions as well. But I'd say that I think that she would win, or at least come very close, and then something causes the competition to be canceled or something like that. I do like the character so far. I like her as a main character. She sort of shares the same mindset as I do, where if I was in her shoes, I would do the same thing, teasing people who deserve to be teased. She is very push for the drama, but not be involved in the drama, which is totally my style. I like watching and I like starting it, and then I'll just sit back and be like, yeah, let's watch this unfold. Yeah, I'm enjoying it so far. I've liked the competition once that kicked up with the main sort of, I feel like, main arc of the book is going to be.
Good stuff.
I'm so excited.
We read the book. We're done.
Yeah. Thanks for tuning into our podcast. Well, I do want to get just your initial impressions of some of the characters that we meet. I know, Kyle, you already talked about Selena a little bit, but what are your kind of initial impressions of Selena Sardathian?
Yeah, I kind of touched on it a little bit. I guess my initial impressions, though, like when we started, was that she's a tough gal.
Mm-hmm.
It starts out pretty much proving that in every aspect. Mentally, I think, was the first thing they showed, where she sort of put on a grinning face just to prove that they had not broken her. And like you mentioned, how she made it so like 300 something feet instead of 3, which mathematically speaking is a lot.
Yeah.
Actually, she made it a lot further. But yeah, there was just a lot of sort of tough character moments for her. I've not seen many soft moments yet. There has been hints at sort of a traumatic past. We're sort of seeing her put up a front in some ways in front of all these new people, but I'd like to see that develop, see some different sides of her.
I think at one point the king said something to Dorian where he was like, it's that thinking that caused all those other guys to die or something like that. Like where he was thinking she was just some whatever kind of girl kind of a thing. And so I've been really trying to not think of her that way, because she hasn't done anything. Like she's just giving like Katniss with the bow and arrow, just like being cool, but she hasn't actually done anything murdery. So I'm just like waiting for it to happen like out of nowhere, because they also talk about like in the prison where she just like snapped and it just like happened. So right now she just kind of seems like this like sassy young teenage kid. I also struggle a little bit with the point of view, like not being in her head.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like you get some of that with how it's written, but it's not just like her only perspective, which I also was surprised by getting into this book. I think just coming from A Court of Thorn and Roses, but
yeah, so that it's super interesting because the first 3 books of A Court of Thorns and Roses are the only books that are written in first person. When you get to like Frost and Starlight, when you get to Frost and Starlight and Silver Flames and then all of Crescent City, they're all written in third person. Crescent City, I think, feels a little more jarring because it switches POV a lot, but that's kind of how Throne of Glass ends up being as you get further into the series and you start to follow more characters. So it is kind of the same writing style as like A Court of Silver Flames and Crescent City series.
Yeah, I guess it will as I get to know the characters and I'm following it around. But like with ACOTAR, like it took a minute to shift into that, but I already knew all the characters and you kind of already knew them as people. So you kind of already knew what they were thinking maybe, or how they were feeling maybe, compared to brand new people. I have no idea what's going on. And I think in Crescent City, because it already shifts POVs, like this one is still mostly just Selena's story following her, like with a little side things of what one of the other guys might say or think, but it's not like she's always in the room, I guess,
Yeah.
if that makes sense. But
Yeah, that's true.
Well, and also something that you sort of touched on when it went to the scene where she like killed her overseer and 23 guards. And then later on, when they explained why they allowed her to stay there that long, because usually they said people didn't last more than, a few weeks or maybe a month or so. I don't know if it's necessarily a prediction, but that, to me, if they were not planning this champion thing for as long as she's been there were other reasons that they kept her alive. Either that or the king just does not care about his people. Because if she's killing guards left and right, I feel like any other prisoner he would have been like, oh, well, I guess it's time to kill her, but they didn't do that.
That's true.
Yeah, that's a good thought.
That's very true. It is also really interesting to me with Selena as our like female main character that a lot of the time in fantasy series you get this like old world to new world in the first book where you spend some time like learning where they came from and then you shift into the new world, which like technically kind of does happen, but a lot of the time it starts with maybe someone who is more ordinary and they have to go through all of these things to become like a tougher person. And for her it's like almost the opposite. Like she's coming from this really tough, she's literally being like tortured and starved and like enslaved in a salt mine, and then she's going into a castle where like things are really calm at first and she is going to be put through these trials, but like she has this really cushy room and like this these sweet digs in the glass castle. Yeah. What did you call it? Thread drip.
Yeah.
Thread drip.
Thread drip.
But yeah, I really like her kind of from the beginning because she's already got this like she's kind of a queen from the beginning.
I did like that it started in the action, so to speak. Like it wasn't, like you said, a slow start where it was like, my name's this and I live in a small town, rural, whatever. It just picked up right where the action was.
Yeah.
Instead of having to be like, oh, it's so calm that I'm going to have to take time to get into it.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about Kyle.
Kyle Westfall. I'm the sheriff in this prison.
I really don't want that to be my perspective of him, because I have like a different idea, and he's not some weird Wild West.
He's
gunslinger.
Not. He is captain of the Royal Guard, Kyle Westfall.
Oh, there you go. I like that. I always hate saying things when everybody else knows the book, but I'm getting love triangle vibes, and I think I'm going to always be fighting for the romance and things, even though I know that there's not as much in this because I'm mostly just a romance reader. But between the three of them with Dorian as well, I don't know. I like him. I think he's fun and I think he's nice. And I like that he like runs with her and he doesn't make fun of her when she's struggling on things, and he feels really protective of her. I don't know. I'm a fan.
I like him too.
And all the other champions were jealous of her for having him. They were like, you got the
that's
best,
true.
You got the best guy in the league teaching you.
Yeah.
So yeah, she really did get pretty much everything when she moved into the castle there. But yeah, I think he's a good guy. I mean, at first, obviously, he was just quiet and withdrawn, but the more they interact, he sort of has this funny way of talking with her, and like how he was saying that her and the prince share a sense of humor, and he'll joke with her and poke fun at her, and they have a very fun relationship right now. I don't know about love, but we'll see.
Well, maybe that's why I like him, because that's how you are, Kyle.
Aww.
Because he's Kyle.
And then you get all weird and crazy. Because he's Kyle. That's the one.
I did really love this moment when Kale is leading Selena to go meet the king for the first time, and he can see that she's obviously like freaking out. And right before she walks in the doors, he just stops her and he says something like, "You look rather pretty today." And then she like lifts her chin and walks into the room. I just thought that was so cute. Like he just kind of knew the right thing to say to like calm her down and like recenter her focus. That was really cute.
Well, and make her like feel good in the moment, and then like go crush it or whatever.
Go crush it. Go off,
total
queen.
I also really like the part where he's like, you don't need me to fight your battles, or you don't need me to get involved. Like he knows that she can handle herself. Like she don't need no man. He's lucky to be there.
And in the same sense where he was kind of like, look, I know you would kill it at this competition, but I need you to tone it down. Like it was never a like, make sure to try to get in the middle. He was like, no, you need to hold back. Like you need to dial it in. These guys are awful.
True. Okay, what are your thoughts on Dorian Havilyard, Crown Prince of Otterlin?
That sounds like the Rune Dannon thing.
I know. It doesn't have quite the same ring to it, but
no, it doesn't. Is it really Otterlin, like an otter?
That's how she says it. And there's a TikTok that makes me laugh every time where it's like it's the audiobook narration and it's just different clips of her saying Otterlin in different sentences. And there's this beautiful fan art, but every time she says Otterlin, a little otter pops up because it sounds like
It's
Otterland.
cute, though. I definitely wasn't pronouncing it that way. So
I wasn't either.
there's that one.
Should we say our wrong pronunciations of everything?
Pronunciations.
Cow.
I think I was saying Adderlin.
I was saying a darlin.
A darling. Oh, my darling.
A darlin.
It's not a bad one either.
Now that I say it out loud, pretty dumb. You're right. I was saying it in my head, and as soon as I said it, I was like, that's wrong.
Well, you know, when you're like reading a new fantasy book, so you just like kind of go, said something,
Yep.
something, and they're in the country of.
I have to make up a sound for this so I can move on.
They're in that place and they're talking to this person.
Yes.
Bill.
Bill.
Okay, Dorian, though, for real life. I liked him from the beginning because it was a Duke Parrington that made her like bow down or whatever, and he was, and he like kind of just in the most like princely way kind of told him off and like belittled him and stuff. And I was like, okay, this is going to be a good guy. And like the way that he's like sassy to his dad. But I have no idea, like even with Kyle, with any of them, I don't like know where their stance is on the whole like rebellion. So it's hard for me to like want to fully like say I like this character, especially with Dorian, because he's like he's the next king of this country that's like taking over everywhere else and being all evil and enslaving all these people. So it makes me nervous to say that I like him, because for all I know, he's actually just as evil as his dad. He's just sassy with his dad or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I'd say I agree. I like his sense of humor because, like it said in the book, it's the same as hers. They share that sense of humor. And I thought the same thing when that one guard came and smashed her head into the ground to make her bow to him. And he was like, don't do that. I was like, that's bare minimum to be a good guy, is to not have people smash other people's faces into the ground. So like, yeah, it's good. We'll see if he gets better. But same thing. He's like, he's good for now, but he's on thin ice.
All right. Kyle's got his eye on Dorian.
Yeah, I don't remember Dorian being so, not flippant isn't the word I want to use, but like I don't remember him being so, I guess, like humorous and like funny and stuff.
Yeah, he's like very charming and swaggering and
he winks at everyone. He's whistling down the hallway and he's like leaning on all the door frames.
Classic book boyfriend behavior.
Even with Kale too, like it made me think as I was reading, like I don't know if it's just the way she writes it, you really get both of their personalities and how they were raised with how their personality is now, even though we still don't know, like we have little glimpses of their history, but we don't know too much about them right now. I don't know. I thought that was interesting this time around.
Yeah, that's true. For reference, it's been almost a full year since Jon and I started this series.
It's true. We started like in June or July of last year.
Yeah, it was June of last year.
Happy Glassiversary.
Glassiversary.
Cheers.
All right. On to the king.
This guy.
This frickin' guy.
I was like really surprised that he was like hyped up to be this evil, mean jerk of a guy. And then he was like, okay, have fun at this competition. I'm going on vacation or something. Like,
Yep. It's weird.
And then he's just gone. Kale was like, he didn't take any of the guards that he wanted. He doesn't even know where he's at. Like, there's just like a lot of weird mystery on the guy. He's just giving like mean evil king. I'm just really thrown off the fact that he's just gone. And no one thinks that's weird.
Tell him about his sword, Lauren.
What's the name of the king's sword again?
No thung.
No thung. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
We went and got shaved ice this afternoon with our daughters. And I was reading in the car and I got to that part. And I was like, you want to hear about his sword? It's nothing. It's nothing. Don't worry about it. It ain't no thung. And so then like they kept bringing it up. He put his hand on nothing. He's not holding anything. Just nothing.
Like the smithy made it for him, and he was like, "What should I call it?" And he's like, "No,
it's nothing."
It's like, all right, well, I guess I'll call it that.
I think the blacksmith was playing a prank on the king, because if you split that word up into two words, what does it say? Kyle got it.
Oh my gosh.
Jokes on the
Got
king.
him.
Blacksmith's rolling in his grave like, idiot.
I'm dead.
This stupid king in your dumb glass castle.
Stupid king.
I really hope this sword comes back and is like important.
I would love for it to not, because then its name would be true. It's like, it was nothing. I don't know why it got so much attention.
Good stuff. Anyway.
Okay, well, let's move on to some more secondary characters for right now. We have Duke Parrington and Caltaine Rombier. Any initial thoughts and impressions?
I was saying her last name wrong. I think for Duke, I'm just like, whatever. He's just, I don't know.
Kind of a douche.
Didn't leave a big impression.
Douche Barrington, am I right?
Visually, he was the Duke of Wesselton in my head.
Oh,
because
nice.
his name sounded very familiar. There was like a brief moment of Phineas and Ferb where he was like, Duke Parrington? But
Where is your mind today?
I was going to say, I always think of the Duke from Moulin Rouge with the creepy mustache.
oh, yeah.
And then is it Caltaine? Is that how you
Yes.
pronounce it? I mean, she's just the worst. And nobody likes her except for her.
Caltaine is Caltaine's #1 fan.
That's a good
Thank you.
description.
All right, what do we think about Nehemia?
You Tigger. That's her last name, right?
What?
Like the Dynaco guy. Like Kachiga. you Tigger. That's another one I sat there for a while and I was like, that's a lot of consonants and half consonants.
That's when I just like phased over. Like, I don't even think I tried.
I do like her though.
Yeah. Well, and I really liked how like Kale didn't stop her. He didn't like, he just trusted her to have this other conversation in the moment. Like, obviously he like stepped in between her and Caltaine or whatever to like, because he felt that energy, if anything, but he didn't like potentially stop, for all he knew, like a rebellious conversation, or I don't know. It just, that was like all around a really interesting scene. And I immediately like her and I want to be her friend. That's how I left that.
Me too.
I will say I came to like her more this time around, like meeting her for the first time.
And I just love that at the end of that, she was like, no, like, do you want to be my friend? Like, come talk to me.
I have enough attendance.
If that's not the most adult friendship ever, though, like,
I know.
it's really how it is these days.
And then you had already talked about Knox Owen a little bit. Is there anything else like surrounding the other, champions in the trials, or any other kind of initial thoughts on anyone specific that you wanted to mention?
I feel like as soon as she got to know someone from the trials, they're dead. Going into it, just thinking that there's probably only one person standing, like literally from the way it was described. And so just now we know someone's name. It's going to have some sort of emotional connection or, for her, and some sort of character growth. And so I just feel like he's going to die. Sorry, Knox.
R.I.P.
I really like him, but he gone.
He didn't leave a super big impression with me yet.
Yeah.
I mean, he's there. He's noticed. He's on the list. But see if he makes any big moves.
All right. Well, this question is more for Lauren and John. We get a lot of questions through Instagram, like in our DMs, about the differences between Throne of Glass and ACOTAR and Crescent City. So I know, Kyle, this is like your first read of any of the SJM series, but Lauren having read ACOTAR and Crescent City, John having read ACOTAR and started Crescent City, how do you feel like the beginning of Throne of Glass compares to these other series, at least in terms of like initial interest level, the pace, the world building, the characters you meet, that kind of thing?
I think for ACOTAR and for Crescent City, if it wasn't for UConn having already read them, I would have maybe even stopped. Like, I feel bad about that. But like the first ACOTAR was my first like really deep fantasy or high fantasy, however you want to say it. And there was a lot of like, keep going, the second one's worth it. Keep going, I promise, that, kind of a thing. And with Crescent City, because it's just such an info dump at the beginning and it's like your brain is exploding. And then all of a sudden you have to start all over again. And try again. So for this one, I feel like the formula is something I understand, because maybe it's because I've read Sarah J. Maas before, or because it is like the competition thing. We just got out of reading Powerless by Lauren Roberts, which is a competition thing following a female lead. I'm super big into like Hunger Games. I've referenced it multiple times today, that kind of a thing. So maybe it's that I have a general understanding of maybe what's happening a little bit better, even though I think it will be like fleshed out way more because the series is way bigger. But for now, I'm feeling like I want to keep reading after today. I'm about it.
I'm so proud.
Yes. So I read Throne of Glass first and read ACOTAR after that, and now I'm in Crescent City. So it's interesting because we're coming from different spots in that journey. I'm thinking back to especially the first book in ACOTAR, and then kind of what I've read in Crescent City 1 so far. Crescent City is, like you said, it's like a huge info dump. There's just like so much going on all the time. I think that's partially because of the perspective. So it's not that kind of like singular perspective. You're just getting like everything from everybody instead of it just following like Selena in this instance. And then for me, yeah, Akatar was just like, what's happening? Like I was just confused because of how it started. And this one almost feels like, I guess, a more natural place to start. It like starts kind of like in the middle of something. There's a little bit more mystery and I think build up maybe a little bit. Even reading the first 16 chapters compared to the first bit of chapters in Crescent City, like I found I like blew through this. I found this it's just much easier to read, but obviously having read it before, I'm like very partial to the books in the series. So that probably helps a little bit, but I feel like I felt mostly the same when I first read through it last year too.
Well, and it could be because this one's YA,
Yeah.
compared to the other ones that are as young. So maybe the writing is easier for us or something. I think Kyle said it earlier where it didn't feel like it was like, hi, my name is this and I live in this town. And then all of a sudden, and because that's kind of what Akatar is a little. Instead, it was like you're in it and things are happening and catch up because everything's going down.
Yeah, I think now that we're talking about this too, I feel like Throne of Glass in this, even just in this first stretch of chapters, you get characters that are so much more likable right away. I think in Akatar, you're even in Crescent City a little bit, it's like even just the way the characters are when we first meet them, they're like kind of whiny or they're like really weak or like something's happening or I don't know, like
or a horse monster.
Yeah, or a horse monster comes barging into the house.
Hate it when that happens.
If you've seen our Akatar reaction videos on Instagram, you'll know what we're talking about. But I think you just get like immediately, you get so much more likability out of the characters. And even with things like Kaltain, like these interactions where you almost feel like you're in on the joke, where like the other characters are like, clearly we don't like this person. And you're like, yeah, I'm so on board with this. Like, I feel like it almost builds more of a sense of like community between you and the characters. Like you feel like you're kind of part of these conversations or interactions or the way, they influence the way you feel about other characters in the book. Like she really kind of pulls you into that from the very beginning, which is a little bit different. And I love that. Okay, so now that we've talked about some initial impressions, some initial thoughts and reactions, we're going to get into some theories. Do you guys have any theories or predictions for what's going to happen in the rest of this book?
Okay, so there's been a couple times that she's seen this like weird green light or like a glimmer, maybe it's fog, I don't know. I think one time it was like in the castle, like in the like actual glass of the castle, and then another time it was in the fire that was in the throne room, like when that was like the first time she met the king or whatever. And after this whole like there's no magic, but maybe there is magic. So like when the infant-sized feet or whatever brought her the flowers, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
And so it makes me think like that there is fae or fae creatures or some sort of thing. And she had referenced that she had magic at some point and then it went away when all the magic went away or something. So I don't know if she's like seeing magic or I'm just making this up. I just feel like it's important because every time she sees it too, it's like her spine stiffens and she gets all like, and that's like alert, something's happening. And I'm trying to like remember all the moments, but alert, like the circle. Yeah. And then I am interested too in, I think like infant feet prince or something that brought her flowers the day after she talked about the fae and the fae creatures in the forest, only because every other SJM book has fae of some sort. Just imagine that's what this book was about too. I wouldn't be surprised if somehow they're important. I also wouldn't be surprised if they're like hidden amongst the normal people or something and they're all faking that they're there or something. And then I also wrote in parentheses high fae because my daughter's name is Faye. And so every time we talk about the high fae from Akatar, and I was telling my mom once too about going to a fae ball, like how people they go to the fae balls, and my daughter Faye was like, fae ball, and she like brought a ball. So she was named before we read these books, but I'm all about it. So
that's so cute.
Anyways.
Yeah, I agree with those theories for sure. I do think it's odd too that in the book it says the king was outlawing magic and then it was suddenly like magic just decided to leave instead. Like it was not something that he ruled and took care of. It was something that he started to do And then she said, and then just magic was gone all of a sudden. People who had it didn't, and magical, beings seemed to be gone. So I do think that will come back. Maybe not fully in this book, but throughout the series, I expect to see some of it. And then, yeah, my only prediction was what I said earlier, is that she's going to win the competition because go off queen. And she will discover the mysterious, magical, evil green Disney magic that's in the castle. And it's going to be a villain because that's what Disney does.
Well, Jon, do you have any favorite moments or highlights that you'd like to share with the class?
The meeting with Nehemia again. I for some reason that just stuck with me a little more this time around. I mean, that and like just Dorian's like demeanor and banter and stuff. As I kept reading through it, I was like, I don't remember him being like this. So yeah, that was kind of like a surprise for me, I guess.
Yeah, kind of coming off of that, I was going to say that one of my favorite things was the little letters between Dorian and Selena about the library. That little like back and forth was so cute. He's like my truest assassin. That was just had me like cracking up on this reread. That was funny. Lauren, what about you?
Kyle and I have been like writing. I wrote notes. I don't know that Kyle wrote any notes. And so I looked it up. I had quoted, "Well," said Dorian, "you fattened up a bit. ... So we'll be ready for," and like just moved on. And I just went, just the thing every lady loves to hear.
They like it when a man notices,
Like, I get what he's saying. Like, she was in prison for a year and she's whatever. But it was like after the 2 weeks of travel, right before they went through into the castle or whatever. It was just like, what a comment.
Did you change something? Your hair? Your BMI, perhaps? That is something, even like after you've seen someone every day for 2 weeks, that's a power move to say at the end of the 2 weeks. Like you hadn't noticed the whole time or something, like, oh, you've gotten fatter, by the way, while we've been traveling.
Time to go meet my dad.
Yeah, let's go meet my dad. I did like all the library scenes too. One of them struck me as odd, where the library had like millions of books, he said. And he was like, and maybe a million more. It's rumored they're under the castle. And I was like, what do you mean? It's your castle. Like, has no one gone under? If there's a room, and a million books is hard to hide. But I do think that those million books, if they are hidden, I'd be interested to see if they are some of the ones that were burnt, the histories that were lost or forgotten. And if she finds her way down there and can see it herself or somehow release it to the public or something.
Nice.
But yeah, that whole library scene was good. The book exchange and him giving her 7 books. He's like, yeah, you can read any of them. You just got to read these first. And then I think she even said one of them was dull. She was reading it and she's like, I cannot get through this book.
But don't we just love a man who gives you a book?
Oh,
yes. We just all need a library.
What a man, am I right?
That's right.
I did have another theory prediction.
Go for it.
So I pulled up my phone and I had saved another quote from the book that I wanted to remember for like a theory prediction vibes. I said, well, this isn't the biggest pile of foreshadowing I've ever seen. And it was, and this is the quote, it's the end of chapter 6. She said, she didn't wish to reign over the city again. Magic was dead. The Fae were banished or executed, and she would never again have anything to do with the rise or fall of a kingdom. She wasn't fated for anything. Not anymore. I was like, okay, lady. That's literally, you're just going to be doing all the things. Because she doesn't think she is. But anyway, just putting that out there.
Some good stuff.
That's a good one.
I do have to mention, I didn't say her name in the pronunciation guide because it's not like a super complicated name, but Philippa, the personal servant that's assigned to Selena, she was like cracking me up in these first few chapters.
I do like her too.
Her interactions with Selena, she's so sassy. And in the audiobook, I didn't listen to this audiobook the first time we read it. Elizabeth Evans gives her like a little Irish accent, and it's like so cute, and it makes her sassiness just like even funnier because she calls her like Poppet.
Oh, that is cute.
I guess she just gave her, yeah, it's really cute. So I just had to give a little shout out to Philippa.
Well, and it's like clear that Dorian knew whatever, I guess, made to give her, because she does feel like the perfect personality or like mother figure. She gives just so much sass back. She doesn't deal with any of her crap. And we only saw her a few times. So hopefully she sticks around.
That's so true. I never thought about Dorian being involved in like assigning her to Selena. That's so perfect. Very cute.
I mean, she's the only one that knows her real name or any of that stuff. So it would only make sense that Dorian or maybe Kaol or something would have
yeah, that's true.
been involved in that too.
All right. Well, that is it for our first episode of chapters 1 through 16. Join us next episode for chapters 17 to 35. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe wherever you enjoy this podcast. Be sure also to follow us on Instagram and TikTok for all the other content that we have, videos, book updates, all kinds of things. And of course, visit our website for merch and links. We just had a second merch drop, ton of new merch, ton of new stickers. The stickers are amazing. The merch is amazing. Go check it out. And lastly, for all extra content that you could ever want and an awesome community, check out our Patreon. In the meantime, we will see you next time.
Bye.